they had people telling them, oh, you're not good enough to do this. They didn't believe it. They knew that they were good enough, that they were capable, but they said our managers or the people that were in our teams would say, oh, but you can't do that. You're a woman. You don't really know what you're talking about. Just because a woman's in engineering or science or whatever field that's male dominated doesn't mean a woman doesn't know what she's talking about. But these women in my research, they were really just kind of like, yeah, these people were telling us these things. And even though we didn't necessarily believe it ourselves, in time, it kind of was like, well, I had to question myself, like, am I really doing this? Am I really not as capable as I thought I was?
Today's women leaders need ideas on what's working right now, ways to overcome the challenges they face, and insights on growing industry trends so they can take action. This is the Activating Women Leaders podcast, providing actionable leadership, life, and industry insights, empowering ambitious women to take their next step. The Women Will Podcast Network is hosted by Laura Kuyimba, women leadership strategist and ecosystem builder. By day, Laura designs systems to successfully scale business strategy and teams. Her passion is helping ambitious women to heal, flourish, and grow into effective leadership with mastery, purpose, and confidence. For more, visit womenwill.world.
Hello, I'm Laura Kuyimba. I'm a women leadership strategist and ecosystem builder. And welcome to my podcast, Activating Women Leaders, where my guests from across the globe share their different perspectives from behind the scenes of life and leadership. Today, I am excited to be joined by Dr. Aasiyah Ghazi. She is an associate faculty at the University of Arizona Global Campus, teaching leadership courses in the Bachelors of Arts in Business Leadership program with the Forbes School of Business and Technology. In addition to teaching, Dr. Ghazi works at Pepperdine University with the Associate Dean's Office as a graduate assistant for the Excellence and Innovation Program, as well as for the Center of Global Partnerships and Learning, where she assists students with their dissertation process, manages the center's podcast, and coordinates events that the center hosts throughout the year. A professional coach and trainer, she facilitates leadership training workshops, courses, and seminars with individuals and corporations in areas of overcoming imposter syndrome. Dr. Aasiyah is the host of her own podcast called The Creative Woman Leader, and she's starting a new podcast called Conquer Imposterism. Her doctoral dissertation focused on women leaders in the engineering field to find the best strategies and practices that they used to overcome the feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome. And so today on this episode, this is what we are going to be focusing on: activating women leaders by overcoming imposter syndrome. Hi, Dr. Aasiyah, welcome. It's wonderful to have you with me.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. Hello to you. I'm so grateful to be here today. And I'm just thankful that you asked me to come speak today on your podcast. I'm excited.
I'm also really glad. I think it's been a long time coming. I've just been admiring your work from afar for a while. And so I just thought it would be great as we get started to hear a bit about your research because you focused on women leadership and imposter syndrome. Why was this so important to you?
Oh my gosh, such a great question. Well, first of all, here's why it was important to me. I have dealt with, and I still continue to deal with, imposter syndrome. I think 70% of the world's population, and this is in research, 70% of the world's population deals with imposter syndrome at some point in their life. And I know I had been dealing with it as well. And I was thinking, well, there's got to be a way to really help other women with overcoming it, because I've been working on overcoming it. And how do I do that? My research on what imposter syndrome was, how it happens, all the symptoms behind it, led me to working on a research project for my dissertation, where I got to find out what the best practices and strategies were that women leaders in the engineering field were using to help them overcome imposter syndrome. Now, in qualitative study, you're kind of having to deal with one population when you're doing your research. And a lot of times my participants, they they have to be from one industry. That's because it's the qualitative nature of it. So of course I chose engineering because women are not always represented in engineering, especially even in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. These are where you don't find enough women. And so I was thinking this is a great place to start with this research to really understand how does it affect women, and what am I going to find in order to create a model, which I ended up creating, the 4 steps to overcome imposter syndrome. So I think for me, because I've experienced it, I know other women who've experienced it. I know people that come up to me every single day telling me, I'm experiencing this. I don't feel like I'm good enough. I feel like I'm an imposter. Someone's going to find out this isn't who I really am. You know, what do I do? And that's really what imposter syndrome is. It's the idea of you don't feel like good enough. You feel like you're inadequate. You may feel that you are a fraud in some form. So if someone's giving you a promotion, you're thinking, this isn't my success. This is somebody else's success that I just took from them, even though it's your own, but you don't believe in your own success. And ultimately, you're afraid that someone's going to find out who you really are, that you're a fraud, and they're going to expose that and you're going to be caught. None of this is true, but it's a mental issue that we all kind of face. It's a mindset issue of, you know, the thoughts and beliefs that we end up getting from our environments, from, you know, how, you know, when we grow up, depending on how we were raised, were we raised to have so many expectations on us? You know, I'm Pakistani Indian, and so, you know, even though I was born here in the United States, I have a lot of the Pakistani Indian culture. And in our culture, you know, we're expecting the children to, you know, get on, you know, be on high standards, get educated, become a doctor, become a lawyer, you know, these highly coveted topics and positions that they want us to be, because they're expecting so much from us. And the minute that we don't follow those expectations, they become disappointed in us and we feel that we're not good enough for them. And this is just an example of kind of like what I had to kind of deal with. But this is something I think we all kind of deal with in some point. So childhood, how your parents maybe expected things from you. If you were the only child, if you were the first child, or sometimes the middle child or the youngest child might end up having those expectations more than on other siblings. And, you know, it could also be, you know, abuse, someone telling you verbally that you're not good enough. You know, me having to deal with that was another reason why I really wanted to research this, because when I was young, I was constantly made fun of. I had people telling me, you know, that I wasn't good enough, that who's going to be with someone like you? You're so fat. You know, they would call me names. They would say things like I'm ugly. These were people coming from my own community, my own Muslim, Indian, Pakistani community were saying these kinds of things to me, making fun of me, saying things about, you know, my mom, again, you know, like, oh, well, she's a divorcee, so this and this. And, you know, they're transferring whatever their insecurities were onto me, to make me feel that I wasn't good enough, to make me feel that I couldn't fit into our community, into our society. You know, there, even if when people start to ostracize you or make you feel like you don't belong with them, that's another way of getting what I call imposter transference. Like they're transferring this to you, and you don't even really know why you're feeling this way or why you're thinking this way. You know, why you might be thinking, oh, I'm not good enough, but it's because of the fact that you're, you know, around these people that are constantly
influences. Wow. I think I can hear your passion coming through, and I think especially as you said, when you talk about your own experiences and then bringing that richness of experience and kind of combining that with the research, as you said, setting those standards. I think that's really important work that we need for women, for us to continue to step up in leadership, because as you said, these are common challenges, and imposter syndrome has been kind of a buzzword, I would say, over the last maybe 5 years or so. And so I'm wondering, is there an official definition of what imposter syndrome is? That maybe you could share to help people really understand, right? So it's like, what is it, and what does it look like? So I know you've already given some examples of that, but maybe we could dig into that a little bit more to help women, because I know you've said some of the women you've worked with didn't even realize that that is what they were facing. So it's like you might be feeling stuck and you don't know, okay, this is actually what I'm facing. And maybe once we label it, define it, then it will be much easier for women to say, okay, this is maybe the obstacle that I'm facing right now. And then we can talk about how do you overcome it.
Yeah, no, it's such a great question. Well, the definition of imposter syndrome first came out by two psychologists who actually did a study on 150 women. These women were high achieving women. They were high achievers, PhDs, very, very high positions. And yet they just did not believe that the success that they had achieved was their success. And so from their article that they wrote back in 1978, so obviously we're in 2022, and this was written in 1978, the definition of imposter phenomenon, at the time it was known as imposter phenomenon. Later on it was changed to imposter syndrome. I never really understood exactly why, because this is not a real syndrome. It's not something that's found in a psychology, in the psychology books. It can be a precursor to other issues such as depression or anxiety, but it's not itself as a symptom or a disorder. It's really just a phenomenon. It's a lived experience. And so imposter syndrome's definition is that one, you don't feel that you're good enough. So if somebody is saying something to you and you feel that, oh, I don't have the skill set or the competency to do this, you may start to feel that insecurity. You might start to feel like you're inadequate, you're not good enough. That's one definition. Along with that definition, though, because there's about 3 or 4 of them that all fit this imposter phenomenon or imposter syndrome, the second one is feeling that you are an imposter, a fraud, which is why it's called imposter syndrome, because it is the feeling of, I'm a fraud. I'm not who you really think I am. I'm showing up to you, showing you that I'm this competent person, that I'm doing all this work, but I'm not really this person.
Wow.
So that's just another definition. Yeah. The third definition is that you happen to get this position, this promotion, these degrees, whatever you're achieving, that you just happen to be at the right place at the right time. So you're attributing your success to good luck, not to your own capabilities. But, oh, well, I just happened to be here at the right time and they gave me a promotion. Okay, great. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but that's how I got it. It has nothing to do with all the work that I did, because clearly that wasn't my work. And that's another definition. Another part of the definition is not believing in your own success. So you're not believing in the ability of your success. Like you think that whatever you did, you took from somebody else. And then finally, it's the ability of trying to hide who you are because you're afraid that someone's going to find out who you are and they're going to tell others, oh, wow, look, Dr. Aasiyah is not really who she says she is, even though I am. But because I'm thinking that I'm not and I'm an imposter, for example, in my head, I'm going to be afraid that somebody's going to think of me and go, oh, wow, she doesn't really know what she's talking about. She's a fake. We found her out. We're going to tell everybody. And so that's the fear of somebody who has the imposter phenomenon. They're afraid someone's going to find out that they truly are not as smart or as capable as people think that they are.
What's really fascinating, I think, as you're sharing those definitions is I'm kind of hearing some similar threads with Brené Brown's work in terms of shame and vulnerability, that sense of identity, not really knowing who you are or being afraid of that exposure. So that's a very interesting parallel when it comes to that. So you talked earlier about transference. How does imposter syndrome arise, right? So you have all these different experiences. They may be cultural, but maybe we can also talk about work experiences or leadership roles and how imposter syndrome arises from some of the challenges women face.
Absolutely. So some of the things that I see, and in the interviews when I did with the participants, I had a few participants who actually told me that they didn't themselves actually experience the imposter phenomenon. But again, we were talking about transference earlier. They had people telling them, oh, you're not good enough to do this. They didn't believe it. They knew that they were good enough, that they were capable. But they said our managers or the people that were in our teams would say, oh, but you can't do that. You're a woman. You don't really know what you're talking about. just because a woman's in engineering or science or whatever field that's male dominated doesn't mean a woman doesn't know what she's talking about. But these women in my research, they were really just kind of like, yeah, these people were telling us these things. And even though we didn't necessarily believe it ourselves, in time, it kind of was like, well, I had to question myself, like, am I really doing this? Am I really am I really not as capable as I thought I was? And they start to question. So that's a form of transference. When someone is telling you you're not good enough in something, when someone is telling you something about yourself that's not true, and you hear it so many times to a point where you might go, well, you know what, if I'm hearing this so much, this must be the truth. For instance, having so many people saying to me that I'm fat and I'm ugly, from when I was a little kid, even up and all the way up until high school, it took away my confidence. It took away my ability to look at myself in a positive way. In fact, I had self-doubts. I was insecure when I was younger. I would even put my own self down in front of people that I knew because I didn't believe in myself. And that in itself is also a form of imposter transference, because other people are transferring their false, and I say false because what they're saying is not true for you. It's false for you. Maybe they have a perspective of you that you don't know about, and that's fine. They can have whatever opinion they want. But if their opinion is going to be something that's going to be very hateful and negative towards you, then that's a sad reflection on what they're thinking about you and what they think about the world in general, because there's nothing wrong with you. Those are fake things that they're telling you. But when you hear it so many times, it starts to transfer to you. It starts to get to you. So I coined this term imposter transference in my dissertation. I've not seen anyone use this word, so I'm trademarking it because it is a very good word to talk about. When I talk about imposter transference, people's ears perk up. They're like, wait, what? What did you say? This is interesting. I have to know what this is. And that's truly what ends up happening. In instances too, in childhood, when people get abused, you're verbally told that you're not good enough by your own family members. For me, for example, I lived with my uncle, for about 35 years of my life. My mom and I were living with him, and he would say things about me to my face, like you're lazy, you're stupid. He would say these names. And although he didn't do it often, but when he did do it, it was very hurtful. And I could feel how that impacted me when I grew up, because when I was applying for jobs, or when I was trying to go for promotions, or I wanted to just do something very big. Like I wanted to, get into a master's program a long while back. I wanted to do all these things. I always felt like I held myself back because I was believing in what he said to me, that I'm stupid, I'm lazy, I don't know what I'm doing, hearing that I wasn't good enough, that, oh, well, you can't do this. This isn't good for you. You're not good enough for this. Really held me back from applying for high promotions, even though I knew I was capable to do the job. I had the experience, I had the background, I had the education, but I always just felt like, oh my gosh, they're asking for this. I don't have this. What can I do to get this position, or to get this promotion, or to get this job? It was a lot of stuff that was going on that really made me feel unsure of myself. I had low confidence, low self-esteem, low self-worth, when I was a lot younger. And so I can honestly say that those instances really created that feeling of imposterism. If I did do something and I was successful at it, I was great at it, but I would still be, I would still feel like, no, I'm not good enough because I haven't really gone up to this level that I need to go up to. That's another thing. High expectations. Your family may have high expectations of you, as we just discussed, especially, for example, if we know ethnically, right? Ethnically speaking, like I said, I come from a Pakistani Indian background. We're expected to have high degrees. We're expected to make a lot of money. We're expected to live a specific type of lifestyle. And when we don't do that and we don't follow through, then we're looked down upon by our own family. We're looked down upon by people in society, or that's how we feel. And these things can also lead to the imposter phenomenon, the experience of, oh, well, I guess, I'm not good enough, or I have to pretend to do this in order for me to, get this goal. But you don't have to pretend. You know what you're doing, and you're smart, and you have the knowledge and the experience. But a lot of times people don't believe in that, right? So when we think about that, our childhood, our expectations from people, from society, from family, our environment, how we were treated when we were young, even so, there are people that they never grow up feeling the imposter syndrome at all until they probably get older. So maybe they finish college, now they're out in the real world. Sometimes people, and this is something a participant said, she was like, I never grew up with this thing that, with any expectations or anything, everyone cared about me, everyone loved me. I was always given positive thoughts, but it wasn't until I got out of college and I was out in the real world and I was seeing how I was being treated that I realized, wow, like maybe I'm really not as good as my family made me feel. Like I was the all-star of the family. Now I'm not, so am I worthy? Am I good enough? That's again, another area of, what people go through when it comes to the feeling of imposterism. They don't feel it when they're younger, but they feel it when they get older sometimes. And it can affect them when they're applying for positions, when they're maybe going off to do higher studies or whatever it is that they want to do.
I can imagine how, there's an entire lifetime of experiences that can accumulate where, all these different things are deposited. I love that term, transference, that kind of it's almost like systemic or environmental, and then we internalize all of these different experiences. But at the same time, I think what's giving me hope is that you can experience all these things at different points throughout your life, whether it's, from the culture, whether it's abuse, whether it's in your workplace, once you've left home. And yet I believe that you can actually step out of it. You can, overcome it. And I mean, I think you are a great example of that, just hearing your story and then seeing how you've risen through that. You had this challenge and you said, what, I'm going to do something about it and find ways to overcome it. So I think it's amazing that, we can have all this history, all our origin stories, but they don't have to define or shape us as we move forward. And I think that's really powerful. So I'd love to hear, the results of your research and the framework that you came up with to overcome imposter syndrome based on all your research and all the different things that you've kind of begun pulling together.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I would love to do that. And I wanted to point out something that I also forgot to mention earlier, and not that I forgot, but it just came into my head too, that it is something I also talked about in my research, was that gender inequalities can also create imposter phenomenon or imposter syndrome in us. Sometimes we're seeing that, like I said, in the engineering field, it's mostly male dominated. In the STEM field, it's mostly male dominated. And you'll see that sometimes women might experience that, oh, I'm not sure if I'm good enough because I'm not, a man in this field. I'm a woman. I might not get the same opportunities. So sometimes that can also make a person feel that they're not good enough, that they're inadequate in some form or some way. And so that's another very big issue. Like I said, it doesn't happen right away. It happens sometimes later in life. This person may never experience imposter syndrome until they get into the real world. And then they're seeing these gender inequalities. And then they're seeing these issues that are happening out there that are causing people to feel this way. So I wanted to mention
as well. I'm wondering, is imposter syndrome confined to women, or do men also experience imposter syndrome? And especially when we are talking about gender inequality and different fields.
Yeah, such a good question. Actually, men do experience imposter syndrome. So a lot of the studies point to the fact that women are the ones that mostly have the imposter phenomenon or imposter syndrome. So they are the ones that have this lived experience of, feeling like they're a fraud and all of that stuff. But men also feel that way. Men may feel that insecurity. They may feel that they're not confident enough in something, especially maybe if they have someone senior that is telling them, hey, you're not doing a good job in this. You're not doing a good job in that. And it makes them feel that, oh, I'm not doing good. And so they kind of start to feel that insecurity. They might feel that, oh, I'm not able to, provide for my family the way that I want to. That will make them feel that a feeling of, I'm not good enough. I'm a fake, I'm not, all of these things. But the way men experience it and the way women experience it are still different, in the sense that men, when they experience it, they have a stress about it. They feel stressed out, and it makes them demotivated to even go higher in achieving their goals. Not everybody feels that, but there are studies, research out there that has shown that depending on how you speak to a man who's dealing with imposter syndrome and how they react to it, it's very different. Women, when you're telling someone that you're not good enough, you're telling a woman you're not good enough, she's going to say, I'm going to show you, let me show you. But men have a different reaction to that. Instead of saying, I'm going to show you, they kind of push themselves back. And so there's a lot more research that needs to be done. There is a lot of, I think, just a lot of information that needs to be continually put out there, because the thing is, men don't report those feelings as much as women do. So it's very hard to gauge how much men do actually experience the imposter phenomenon, or the fact that maybe they don't really experience it as much, or the differences in their experiences in comparison or in contrast to women and how we experience it.
I think that's very insightful. And I think especially as we lead, I think it's going to be relevant. You talked earlier about the implications for mental health and well-being that arise from imposter syndrome. And so I think as women rise in positions of leadership, I think being conscious that, it isn't exclusive to women only, but also men can suffer from that. And I think it's important to create those environments that actually support everyone to flourish. So thanks for that. So the 4 ways to overcome imposter syndrome. I'm really excited to hear your research on this.
Yeah, so based on what my participants and I discussed and what they told me about their experiences, I had to sit down and kind of do the qualitative analysis. I looked at all of, the interviews and listened to them again and transcribed them. And I came up with these buckets and themes that I kept seeing over and over again, which led me to kind of create this framework that would work for women in any industry. It's not just for women in engineering, but women in any industry, whether it's teaching, whether it's, being in the kitchen as a chef in a restaurant, to teaching, whatever it is that your industry is in. The findings I thought were really interesting, because I was able to see that, women, while they do experience the imposter phenomenon, they also tend to see that, well, with time and with experience and with age, it actually lowers. But they also had to have the different components I'm going to talk about in the 4 steps. So the 4-step model that I created is called the ASIA 4-step model. And this model discusses 4 different aspects that you can utilize right away to start working on overcoming these feelings of imposter syndrome. Because who wants to feel that they're not good enough? I want to feel that I'm good. I want to feel that I know what I'm doing. This is my success. I'm celebrating it. And that's the important part, is we have to remember to celebrate ourselves. So I'm going to talk about that in the 4 steps. All right. The first step, is called accomplish. So why accomplish? Accomplish, it means you're setting goals for yourself that you want to accomplish. So in this first step, you set out a map of goals. Okay, this year my goal is, for example, or in these next 3 months, my goal is however you do it. Some people do yearly goals, some people do monthly goals, some people do quarterly goals. Whatever works for you, you want to utilize that. You want to write on a piece of paper. If you want to use a computer and you want to use, Google Docs or Google Sheets or project management software where you can, gather your goals together, that's great. If you like to write, you can write it. I'm old school. I was born in the 80s. I'm a millennial, an old school millennial. So I like to have a book or pen and paper in front of me to write. But however you want to write your goal, write out what it is. So if your goal is, let's say in the next 6 months, you want to complete a degree, write that down and write out like the steps that you're working on towards achieving that. I'm taking 2 classes this term. I'm working on, these specific areas that I need to work on in order for me to pass the classes. I'm getting tutoring, whatever it is. If your goal is, I want to get a promotion at my next job, or I'm trying to get a new job, write all of those goals down and think about how you're going to get those goals accomplished. Who might be the people in your life that you're going to need to help you to fulfill those achievements that you set out for yourself. And this is where the second step comes in, support systems. So support systems are really important, because a lot of times when we're feeling a certain way, we feel like we're the only one. You know, like for years, I felt like I was the only one that really felt this way, that I was the only one that had been bullied, that had been dealt with verbal, emotional, mental abuse, that, you know, that had gone through this feeling of I'm not good enough, and not being able to share that, you know, hey, listen, sometimes I just don't feel like I'm good enough and I don't know what to do about it. Who could I share that with, right? When you have a support system in place, and this is what really helped my participants as well, is you have a system of people who are there for you, circle of influence, so to speak. So these are people that are your mentors, they could be your guides, they could be your sponsors, they could be coaches, they could be your therapists if that's what you want, they could be your friends, family, people that you are close to, that they are close to you, that 100% support you. Now, in the second step of support system, which is why it correlates so well with the first one of accomplishing, when you set your goals, you want to think about who are the people in my life I want that will help me to achieve these goals. So you might have friends that you can talk to on a weekly basis that, you know, might say, oh, I have a goal and I want to share this with you. And they'll say, yeah, share it with us. Let us know how we can support you, right? That's your support circle. And then at the same time, you can get accountability from people who are part of that circle of influence. You do want to be careful, though. You want to weed out people that are not necessarily supportive of you. Sometimes you might have, and you might not know this. This is why it's really important to kind of assess your circle every 6 months. Who are the people in my life that are friends, family, whoever it is, who are these people in my life that I know I can trust, that I can talk to them about things, that I can share how I feel sometimes when I'm feeling that sense of I'm not good enough, so that they can come back and say to me, no, you're wrong. You aren't good. You look at all these things that you've accomplished. You know, like when I tell my friends, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. They like literally bark back at me and say, no, you are. And it's because you have all the experience and capabilities. Here's all the accomplishments. I mean, they know my accomplishments more than me. Sometimes I forget, honestly, with all the things that are going on. And I know we all tend to forget these things. So having that supportive circle remind you of the things that you've done, that they see, like they tell you, oh, you're inspiring me, you're motivating me. I hear that a lot from my circle, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize I was doing that. I didn't realize that my work was that impactful. And so, but for someone that has a support system, those reminders really help them with knowing that, number one, they're not alone, and number two, that they have this circle of influence around them. Weed out the people that are not supportive of you. If you have someone in your circle that is full of drama, every little thing you say or do, they make it dramatic. I've gone through it. That's why I'm saying it. I've gone through this. You might have someone in your circle that's a toxic, narcissist person. Stay away from them. These are not people that are trustworthy, and more than likely they're going to make you feel even worse about yourself. Stay away from people who will constantly drag you down, who will constantly be negative about things. I'm not against negative things. Sometimes the negativity has to be there so you can be able to look at the positive side of things in a more different way. And sometimes when something bad happens, it means that something good is behind it. Of course you want to think that way. But you have someone who's like literally dragging you down and saying things, and they're always like, yeah, I had a lousy day. Man, I hate this coworker because she's always saying this or that. You're constantly hearing these things, whether you're at your workplace, whether you're in your circle of friends, somebody's calling you and all they're doing is complaining about things. You might want to keep them out of your circle. Just saying. Because you do want to have your circle with people that you trust. And that's another thing. If you have someone in your circle who blabs a lot and doesn't, keep secrets, then this isn't someone you want, because confidentiality and trust are the most important thing that you can have in any relationship. And sometimes, things do happen. You might accidentally blurt something out and you don't mean to, or you're trying to maybe help somebody and you don't have a choice but to tell that person, listen, this is a real truth, just so that you can help to resolve things. But I mean, if someone is talking to you about something in confidence and they don't want you to say something to somebody else about it, and you go and blab and your whole circle now knows, that that's not the person you want. They're not supportive of you. Rather, they're just there to create drama. So if you can assess your circle every 6 months, flesh out those people that are not, they can still be in your life, but they'll just be associates. You can still say hi and bye to them if you have to associate with them outside of your circle. But in your tight circle, keep those people around you, your friends, family, teachers, mentors, coaches, whoever it is that you care for, that they care about you, you support them, they support you. Remember, it goes both ways, but that you're able to have that support. I think it's really important. The third step is investment. So you've set your goals, you know what you want to achieve, you have a support circle, they know what you're doing, they know they're going to be there to support you, they're going to give you advice, you have mentors and coaches. And now the next step is, well, what if I am given a promotion, but I might not know something? Rather than kind of going, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not good enough, and falling into that trap of becoming a fake imposter. And I say fake imposter because really we're not imposters. Our work is not fake, but we tend to believe that it's a mindset thing. We want to think about how to invest in ourselves. And at the same time, your support circle will also grow bigger, because when you're being supported by other people, it's going to help you to meet new people in these associations, for example, that you might want to join as part of investing in yourself. So when you're investing in yourself, you're joining these different associations that are within your industry. So for example, my participants were telling me that they were a part of women's engineering associations, which cater to engineering for women, helping them to grow, helping them to find ways to continue growing in the engineering field, because more women are needed in this field. So these engineering associations were really helpful in giving them knowledge, and at the same time help them to meet more people that were in the same field as them, that had maybe more experience than them, that they could ask and talk to and look up to. So not only is it giving you the ability to learn new things, being a part of the meetings that you might have on a monthly basis, because, for example, I'm part of the Human Resources Associations here in California. And we just had our conference about 2 weeks ago. I was there for 3 days, walked 15 miles all over this convention center. I met so many people and I networked with everybody that I knew. And, I started to add them on LinkedIn. We were starting to stay in touch. We're talking to each other often. I'm planning to meet up with some of them for coffee, at sometime in the next month or so, and having lunch with them just to catch up, because I'm creating these relationships and bonds because I'm part of an association and I invested my money and my time to learn new things. And the conference helped me to learn new things that are going on in human resources. At the same time, I'm meeting new people. So if you notice how each step, they kind of combine together. You're setting your goals, you've got your circle of influence and your support systems, and now you're investing in yourself by joining associations where you meet more people, where you learn new things. And, so I'm also a part of Toastmasters International. And I don't know if you've heard of Toastmasters, Laura, but Toastmasters is a very large global organization, nonprofit organization. And they're all about helping people develop their leadership skills, their public speaking and communication skills. One of the things that I really tell people is, if you want to invest in yourself and you're afraid that maybe you might not have that interpersonal communication with people as a leader, to join Toastmasters, because you're going to learn not only how to communicate with others, but you're going to learn speaking skills. You're going to learn how to speak and do presentations. You're going to learn how to become an actual speaker. You're going to also learn how to lead people, how to lead teams, because a lot of times, they don't know that. So again, I'm investing my money in Toastmasters, which is an association helping me to become a better speaker, a better leader. And I'm meeting new people here too. And I've made a lot of really great supportive friends through Toastmasters. So part of that investment is spending that money on associations in your industry, even in associations that might not necessarily be in your industry like Toastmasters, just to enhance your own skills. And lastly, for investments, what I would also say as investing in yourself is that you need to focus on, like, if let's say you're bad at accounting. I mean, look, if someone asked me to do an accounting job, I wouldn't be able to do it because I suck at math. Math is not my subject. Yeah, I couldn't do accounting. Like I might just screw up your payroll and you'll be mad at me for not getting your monthly paycheck. So, or not getting the right amount of your monthly paycheck. So that's obviously something I don't know. Now, if I'm going to go and get a job where I have to deal with payroll and something, and maybe I don't know it, rather than immediately feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be good enough for this job. They're going to find out that I'm not good enough. I lied somewhere in my interview and now they're going to find out and blah, blah, blah. Well, no. Now what you do is you take the classes. We have Zoom. We have in-person classes are resuming again for most places around the world. Coursera.com, edX.com. There's LinkedIn Learning. you can take any courses through these for free or at a small cost and get certificates and learn from these people who are here to teach you. Now you got the skills that you are looking for. So now when you're going to do this job, you know exactly what you're doing. We have everything at our fingertips, and it's just a matter of us having to invest in ourselves to be able to do that. And finally, acknowledgement. That's the last step of the ASIA model. We talked about accomplish, we talked about support systems, we talked about investments. Acknowledgement. This is the largest and most important part of this framework. And I can't stress it enough, because what ends up happening, and this is something I've noticed, is what ends up happening is we might be the most successful people in the world and we might be achieving that success, but we're not taking the time to acknowledge it and to celebrate it. We're not celebrating ourselves. What ends up happening is, let's say you get a promotion, you can be like, if you're passively celebrating, and I say passively means you're not really celebrating, but you're like, oh, I'm happy I got it, but that's it. Like, you're not doing anything extra to like really acknowledge that you got this promotion. So you might have a promotion and it's going to pay you an X amount of money more than what you were getting, and it's just really, it's a really great position at this company, right? And maybe your manager, your new team, they're going to take you out to lunch to celebrate that. So they're actively celebrating with you and they're acknowledging. But if you're there and you're like, oh, yeah, I got this position, but did I really deserve it? And you start to kind of question that, you're not actively celebrating or acknowledging the fact that you got a promotion. Instead, you're kind of passively acknowledging it. You're being passive. You're like, yeah, good, I got it, but now what? So what? And you don't want to go in that direction. That's an accomplishment. So you received a promotion, you need to be excited about it. You need to, celebrate with the people at your workplace who are willing to celebrate with you. You need to, celebrate, go out somewhere. You don't have to celebrate with people. Celebrate by yourself if you want to, go take yourself out to dinner somewhere nice, watch a movie that you like, eat your favorite ice cream, do something for yourself to celebrate the fact that you achieved the goal. And of course, you want to write a journal. Have a journal, have a book. I have a journal, I have my iPad, like I have, little books right here that I write out. Okay, I accomplished this, today I, achieved this. The thing is, and I want everyone to listen to this really carefully, you want to acknowledge every small goal and every large goal. I mean, every single thing. So if you acknowledged, for example, if you acknowledge yourself for even just getting up and taking a shower, I mean, because for some people, who are going through a lot in their life, and they're maybe they're going through something very, a lot of stress, and to the point where they just don't even want to get up or do anything. They don't want to shower. The fact that they would even get up and do something, like for me, I celebrate the fact that I can even get one thing done sometimes, because sometimes I'm so bogged down with things and I kind of go, oh my gosh, I haven't gotten this done. What am I supposed to do? I haven't gotten that done. Well, rather than dwelling on that, I just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to celebrate the fact that today I actually did my podcast recording, or today I went and got gas in the car because I hadn't had, what I mean? So little things like that, are not, they might not look like accomplishments to you, but you know what? For some people, they really are accomplishments. You got a good grade in your class. That's a great accomplishment. Celebrate it. It's not an A. Oh, I got an A. Great. Okay. And then that's it. You're done. That's passive. Actively celebrate. I got an A. Like, call up your friends and be like, listen, do you guys want to go out for dinner tonight? What do you all want to do? Because I'm celebrating the fact that I got an A. And I know some people that do that, and I love it, because I'm like, great. And they write it in their journals and they say, yeah, I got an A in this class. And my professor said that my paper was one of the best papers that I wrote. So celebrate that. That might look small to you, but that's going to go towards a bigger goal later on. So celebrate that. If you are looking for a higher position, but maybe you didn't get that position yet, you got a promotion to a different position, celebrate that, because you're going to get that higher position. It's on the way. And the fact that you even got this other promotion is helping you towards achieving that higher goal that you have. So again, every little step, celebrate that. If you even lost a pound on the scale, celebrate that. It's important, because what this ends up doing for us, as far as our mindset as well, is it helps us to start to look at ourselves as people that are successful and not people that are imposters or frauds. It starts to give us a different outlook of who we are and what we've actually accomplished. So that, if we ever fall into this trap of, I'm not good enough, I don't have the confidence to do this, I can't do that, you can look up this book and say, you know what, here's my accomplishment. I was asked to be on somebody's podcast today. That's an accomplishment for me. And I wrote and I did that. Oh, wow, look, I did another accomplishment. You're looking at this journal, you're like looking at this list, this long list of accomplishments that you've been writing. So you have physical evidence of that acknowledgement, and you're celebrating it. And it doesn't make you feel that this was not your success, because part of that imposter syndrome definition that we talked about earlier was, oh, this isn't my success, it's somebody else's, but I ended up getting this position. Well, you're sure it's somebody else's? Because if you go back and you look at what you've written, you've accomplished a lot of things that allowed you to get this role in this job, in this company, or in this, or this higher position that you were looking for. So it's not a fake, it's really you, and so if we can get these 4 steps, if we put them together and we start to work on them, setting our goals, having our support systems in place, investing in ourselves, and really celebrating every accomplishment that we do, it's definitely going to help us to really reduce, or in fact, even eliminate the imposter feelings that we would get.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing those incredible 4 steps. So accomplish, writing your goals, right? Like, what are you doing? What do you want to achieve? Support that circle of influence that you have, and constantly assessing it. And I think that's also really important, because people move, things change over time, and sometimes you might find yourself stranded, right? Because you haven't been actively maintaining that circle of support, investing in yourself. I love how you talked about all the different resources that we can actually get, whether it's joining associations or actually enhancing our different skills, so that we can actually have that sense of competence that we might be lacking in different areas. And finally, acknowledgement, as you said, the biggest one. So celebrate. And what I really like about acknowledgement is then you are really building that track record over time. So as you said, it becomes like, these are my accomplishments. And even if, you end up feeling like, oh, have I really done that much? Have I done enough? As you said, then you almost have like this record, this physical evidence, as you said, of the successes that you have. So I think that's an incredible 4-step process. And I love all the examples that you gave as well. So really grounding it in concrete examples that I believe we can all relate to and really resonate with a lot of what you've shared. I'm just thinking, as we're talking about, like this track record, you've invested in yourself, you have all these support systems. So, as a woman leader, what strengths or skills or advantages, right, do women bring to leadership when they're really able to activate these 4 pillars, and they're able to not just overcome imposter syndrome, but I think really tapping into who they are and bringing their best self to work?
Oh my gosh, that's really such a great question. I feel that women, first of all, women need to come together. Women need to come together to help each other out in being the leaders that we want to be in this world, and that we want to be in our organizations and in our communities. And when we have that support from each other, I think that's going to really help us elevate ourselves in terms of being able to support one another. Because, like I was saying earlier about support systems, as women, when we're supporting one another, we have the ability to talk about what we're going through and to learn from one another. And so for me, I think about it like this. I might have somebody in my life who I look up to, who inspires me, and I want to emulate that. And as women, what we really need to do is we need to think about that. We need to think about the people that are our role models, or that are people that look up to us and who say, you inspire me in what you're doing. And if you think about it from that perspective, when we're really working on ourselves and people are seeing that, people are seeing us working on our leadership, we're working on maybe changing certain habits that we might have, we're working on all of these things. The more that we do that, and the more that we can be role models for other women, I feel that that's going to help elevate women leaders in general, because we have other people to emulate. We are looking at other women and going, wow, these women are powerful, they're strong, they have a voice, they speak up when they need to. They speak up for the injustices that might be happening that they're seeing. They bond with others. They're there for each other. Like if you need a shoulder to cry on, I'm here, right? Another woman's there. We're all there for each other. That's really going to help us essentially get to having this ability to really enhance our own leadership and really develop ourselves, as women.
I think just that idea of a tribe of women coming together. It's like that when you are all standing together and like no one can knock you down. But I completely failed that analogy. So, but
I got it.
But I think it is powerful. I think just getting that support system, connecting with other women, and as you said, being able to share those experiences. I think that's why I love these conversations, because it's like what's possible, right? Because sometimes because we are in our own world, we don't actually know what's possible. But like you said, when you find other people to emulate, when you see, wow, she's actually doing that. And, if she can, maybe I can, even if I get a fraction of what she's doing, then, like my life can be so much better. And so I think it's really incredible, as you said, having those role models. And I think for ourselves as well, actually stepping up and acknowledging that we are role models for some people, and being able to own that, right? Because I can imagine imposter syndrome can take that away from you as well. So I think being able to own that is incredibly powerful. So what unfiltered advice would you give to an ambitious woman, right? And she's like on this trajectory of like growth and healing and leadership. What would you say to her?
Here's my piece of advice to women everywhere who are looking to achieve, who are looking to grow, ambitious women leaders. Nothing should stand in your way of going to where you want to be. Everything is possible. Assess your environment often, because one of the things that I know we don't always do is look into who we associate with. So, and I mentioned this before, I would love for, you're an ambitious person, you're reaching your goals, make sure you've got the right people around you. Assess the people that are in your life, assess your environments. Make sure you have a safe environment for yourself and a safe environment for others to speak to you. And continuously educate yourself. And I'm not saying go to school and put yourself in debt and all that. No, I'm saying educate yourself. Find topics that you want to learn about. Read books. Look up to other women who are out there, who are in the positions that you want to be in. If you're looking to be in a position of leadership in an organization, if you're looking to be in a position of leadership in, politics, for example, you want to become like the next mayor or the next prime minister or something of that nature, look at the people that are doing the work that they're doing now, the women that are doing the work, and start emulating them. Emulate the good qualities of every person that you meet, because those qualities, those characteristics that you develop in yourself are going to help you to become better leaders. So my advice is, again, assess your environment, assess your circle of friendships, and make sure that you are able to create a position for yourself where people can look up to you and feel inspired as well. Because a lot of times what happens is that we're not necessarily thinking about who we're inspiring. I'm sitting here doing this podcast with you, Laura, and I don't know who I'm going to inspire. I don't know who's going to listen. And if I inspire one person today, hey, I did my job, right? That's kind of the belief that I have. And I feel that as women, if we believe that that by our work, by our characteristics, by our standards, our values, our core beliefs, and the way that we model ourselves in the world and in our communities, that we're going to inspire other people to do the same. And I think that a true essence of a leader is that person that is able to build relationships, to inspire people, to do good things, to, for example, with me, I've had people tell me, man, you're inspiring me to go back to school and get my education. Great, because that education might help you get to the next step that you want to get to. So always think about yourself as somebody who is inspiring others to do their best, because you're also working on doing your best. And that's really the insight that I picked up as I'm working on developing my own leadership, And every single day we're gonna work on it. We're never gonna end the development process. And I want to be honest about that. There's not gonna be a moment in your life where you're gonna say, oh, I've gotten everything I needed and I'm the most amazing leader ever. And that's it. I don't need to learn anymore. No, you're always going to be learning. You're always going to be leading others. You might find people that are not going to like your leadership style. You might find people that are not going to like you at all. And you just need to be okay with that. And you need to continue moving forward so you're able to achieve your goal in being the best woman leader that you can be, knowing that this is something you're going to be doing for the rest of your life.
Fantastic advice. I think it was last week I was talking to another friend, and we realized that WIP also stands for Women in Progress. And I think that's really what you've encapsulated, that it is continuously learning, continuously growing. And I think being open to whatever's happening around us, right? Whether it's opportunities, whether it's learning, whether it's growth, or even sometimes that feedback from people who don't like the way we are doing things, and actually just being like, that's okay, right? Either I need to change, or, maybe we need to change how we interact, but this is the best that, I am showing up and doing. So I love that. So it's like, always acknowledge you are a WIP, woman in progress. So what does that look like for you, right? So as you are, growing and, constantly kind of maybe stepping out of your comfort zone, challenging yourself, I guess there probably are, and you've kind of mentioned it earlier, right? Like some days it's like, there's just so much going on. Maybe you get overwhelmed or you lose focus. What do you do in those moments? Or, what do you ask yourself? What do you do to kind of refocus and deal with those feelings of overwhelm?
That's a great question. Overwhelm and burnout are definitely not great things to deal with. It's something that, I know we all go through, and something I've gone through. I went through that quite a bit last year, and the stress actually affected me quite a bit. And I had to learn that one of the ways to stop overwhelm and even burnout is to just step back. And again, you are assessing everything around you. Is this something I want to do? Is this something that makes me feel good? If it's not, I'm going to just step away from it, because maybe it's not something I should be focusing on right now. Learning how to create boundaries for yourself and with others. And when I say for yourself, I mean, sometimes what ends up happening is we're creating boundaries with other people, but we're not creating boundaries for ourselves. And that's something I know, is a struggle. For example, we're not going to be on the computer after 10. But even though we say that to ourselves, how many times do we still find ourselves on the computer till midnight? Right. I'm guilty of that. Right. So I'll be honest. And so when we're so overstimulated and we're dealing with overwhelm, it definitely leads us to all kinds of things, all kinds of feelings and emotions that we might be feeling. And sometimes those emotions could be, I'm not, confident enough to take this on. How can I do that? So I definitely will say that, in order to combat overwhelm, and what I've been doing lately is I just step away from the work and I go and I rest. I lay down in my bed maybe for like 5 or 10 minutes. I go for a leisurely walk. I have a park literally right behind the window right here. I have a park. So I can just walk 200 feet to the park and just take a nice walk and go out in nature. Just, enjoy the breeze, enjoy the wind. I live right by the beach, so it's never really as hot here. And so I get to be able to enjoy at least the good weather and, the sunshine. And that helps because, when you take a good walk, you rest a little bit, that's good. Maybe you just need to take some time out. So you may, call up your they're available, and you can go ahead and you can do something with them. Like maybe go out, go watch a movie and just let loose and enjoy, go to the beach if you have a beach. If you don't have a beach, then, go hiking or go be by the mountains somewhere where you can really just enjoy and just be by yourself, even if you need to be. But you want to be able to step away from whatever it is that's overwhelming you and just kind of step into your own being for a little bit. And, that could be a good time to reflect. Okay, is this something that I really want to do? Or maybe this is something I need to say no to. Another thing that I know some other people do, I don't necessarily do this, but some people do this and it helps them, is yoga. Yoga helps, Pilates, even meditation. Just YouTube has so many meditation tracks. Just put in your headphones or your AirPods, whatever you have, sit down, close your eyes, just breathe in, relax, and listen to that soothing sound of music. It could be just maybe the soothing sound of rain. It could be the soothing sound of the water, of the ocean. Just sit there and meditate, and it, calm your brain, calm your nerves, or release the stress. It's not worth it. At the end of the day, it's not worth all of this stuff. Our health is so much more important. So why do we need to go through the overwhelm and burnout? If we are going through that, these are signs that we need to recognize that we need to take a break, and we need to ask for one. So if you're afraid to ask, then you're not going to do yourself a service later on in life, right? So ask, let your manager or people in your life know, hey, I'm taking a few days to myself. I'm going to rest up. I will be back on with everybody else later, especially with the world of Zoom. We're all online right now still. A lot of overwhelm. We have so much stimulation from our phones, our iPads, tablets, computers. So shut everything down, go to bed, go read a nice book. That's another way to, reduce the overwhelm. Yeah, do something for you.
Very practical feedback, right? So just really getting grounded, really connecting back with your body, connecting with nature. Yeah, and I think some of the things that, finding ways to kind of step out of the busyness. And, I know we are kind of moving out of the hustle culture trend. And so I think that's a fantastic way to really just step out. As you said, burnout is real. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, we need to experience it to really learn how to, okay, I need to step back and to know our limits. But I think those are some great ways to really practically take care of ourselves. So I think as we come to the close, I really appreciate your time and everything that you've shared with us. I think has just been so fantastic. But maybe as we close, what new habit or behavior has most improved your life in the last few years?
That's such a great question. I think for me, one of the beliefs that I've really worked on in the last few years, especially, has been to, focus inward and reflect often as much as possible, and to constantly be like in prayer about things, right? So constantly, believing, I believe in God, whoever, you believe in, a higher power, whatever you believe in, you want to have a connection to that source. And in the last few years, I've been really working on that connection very strongly, to the point where it's like, I believe that, miracles are going to happen in my life. And I believe that good things are going to come my way. I believe that everything that I'm doing, I'm being supported by, God, by my higher power, right? And so I feel that has been a new belief for me, praying more and more as much as I possibly can. Sometimes I miss my prayers, it's not easy for me to get up and, pray my 5 prayers. I am a Muslim, so, I have to, go through that. But it is something that I work with on a regular basis. And I think that's really helped me to get really close to the spiritual side of myself, where I get to, not only just have that connection with God, but also connection with myself, something that I didn't have for a very long time. I noticed that actually without the prayer in my life and without the connection, I actually felt very miserable. And so, it's in the last, 6-7 years, I've seen such a difference just by adding, prayers and praying, and just a connection with God, and, changing the way I believe about things into things that are more positive, to things that, hey, this is what's going to happen. I've seen miracles happen in my life. I want more miracles to happen in my life. I want to see happiness in my life. And so I know that, it's going to happen for me. And having that belief that it's going to happen, faith and trust that God's going to take care of everything. I think that's really helped me, especially in being able to come on and, be that person that I am today, that I probably wasn't even 10 years ago, or even 6 or 5 years ago. We change every year, right? So
that's wonderful. And I love that, because it is holistic. And I think there's now a lot of research that shows the benefits of having a spiritual life and just how that can support our own growth and development, as you've said. So thank you for sharing that habit that has really transformed and improved your life in the last few years. So thank you so much for being on the show and having this conversation. I think as we close, I know you have a few resources that you have. So you've published a journal called the Creative Leader Journal, and people can purchase that on Amazon and journal about how they show up and what they've achieved. So I think that's fantastic for that acknowledgement step, and possibly even acknowledge the accomplished step, right? Writing down what goals do you want. And it has monthly reflections that can help people to learn about themselves as leaders. And you've also co-authored a chapter in a book called New Horizons in Positive Leadership and Change. And I believe you're co-authoring 2 more chapters in other books on global leadership and on servant leadership style of women in business. So I'm really looking forward to hearing, and maybe we might get you back on Activating Women Leaders to talk about servant leadership, because I think that's something that I really love and am passionate about. So people can connect with you on LinkedIn, where you are very active, I believe. And so, yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I'm looking forward to, like I said, just seeing some of the other resources that you have. We've kind of talked about, I'm not sure if you're ready to talk about the certificate that you're working on that's coming up soon, the certificate on women leadership.
Yes, I am working on the certificate, and it's going to be offered through Pepperdine University, hopefully once everything's been, completed. So I'm still in the process of putting everything together. We're still in the process of making sure that it'll happen, with our center at the university, at Pepperdine University. So once that's done, I will update you, and yeah, we'll put it out there. But you can always find me. I also have a link tree. So all my links are linked on the link tree, and I believe you have that link. So, I have the postings for my journal and everything else on there. But I can't wait for that certificate. So it'll be out soon. And then I'm working on a couple other courses. So hopefully that will be out very soon as well.
I think that's wonderful. Like I said, very practical resources in terms of equipping yourself, enhancing your skills, developing yourself as a leader, just being constantly open to learning, to growing, to stepping out of your comfort zone. And so thank you so much, Dr. Aasiyah. And thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. Looking forward to hearing if you have any questions or feedback, or if you'd like to come on as a guest and share behind the scenes of your career or other experiences of women and leadership. I'd love to have you on Activating Women Leaders.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Woman Will podcast, a community where ambitious women support each other to get to the next level. Be sure to visit womenwill.world to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Subscribe to our podcast for updates and join us to chart the way forward for women in leadership. If you love the Women Will podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. That's this week's episode of the Women Will podcast with Laura Quimba. Join us again next week for another episode. Thanks for listening.